everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be telling you about the 10 books that have been on my TBR for the longest time. It's a problem that is shared by many readers, many booktubers, is that we have pretty big TBRs. And sometimes I will buy a book, I will be super hyped for it, and then I just don't read it. And then somehow months pass and then somehow years pass. In the case of some of these books, coming up to 6 years now, because there are books here that I acquired in 2015. And I know it happens. Sometimes you get a book and it's on your shelf for a while and then you decide that you don't want to read it anymore. And there have been plenty of books that I bought in 2015, 2016, 2017, etc. that I have since unhauled having not read them. But all of these books today have survived all of the purges of my shelves. And all but one of these books I want to have read by the end of the year, otherwise they are gone. The book that has been on my TBR for the longest time, and I do still fully intend to read this one, is Perfect by Rachel Joyce. I have read 3 Rachel Joyce books, so I've read The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, I've read The Love Song of Miss Queenie Hennessy, and I've read The Music Shop, and I really enjoyed all of those books. But I think I've had this one longer than I had any of those other books. I think this was the first Rachel Joyce book that I bought. I have tried to read this previously, but it was just like the wrong time to be reading this book. I wasn't enjoying it and I knew that I was the problem, not this book. I don't even really remember what it's about other than that there is like a dual timeline, so we're following part of the story in the 1970s and part of it in the present day. I've loved Rachel Joyce's books, that's why I've already read 3 of them. They are really like cozy stories but have kind of contemporary societal issues that underpin the plot. The bookmark is still in here. This is what I was talking about in my recent video that I did on bookmarks, when I was talking about how chances are there are a few more bookmarks lurking in between the pages of books on my shelves. This is a point of sale bookmark from Nosy Crow. I don't think I'm going to be keeping this bookmark, but like I said in that video on bookmarks, when I have a bookmark that I don't want to keep, I have been putting it in with books that I unhaul so that they come with a bookmark. Anyway, I got to chapter 99 of Perfect, but when I do get around to reading this, I will be starting from the start. Been on my TBR since 2015. The Night Watch by Sarah Waters has also been on my TBR since 2015. I think this is another one where I have tried to read this one. This is historical fiction that is set in the 1940s. It is set in London, so it has the backdrop of wartime Britain, and I think it's about 4 friends. And I know that Sarah Waters' books have a lot of queer themes in them, a lot of like LGBT characters. This one has survived every time I have culled my shelves because I do feel really confident that I'm gonna like Sarah Waters' books. I just haven't got around to it yet. Okay, so the other book that has been on my TBR since 2015 is the one that I'm probably not gonna read. It's Moby Dick by Herman Melville. This was one of, if not the first Penguin English Library book that I got. I think maybe Wuthering Heights was the first one and this was the second one, and I can't remember how, but I got this for free for some sort of like promotional reason. And that copy of Wuthering Heights and this copy of Moby Dick were what began my love affair with the Penguin English Library books, and thus began what I can only describe as a toxic relationship. These books lure me in with how pretty they are, and then I buy them and then I don't read them. It's not a reciprocal relationship. The books aren't getting read. It makes the books feel bad, it makes me feel bad. But here we are in this vicious cycle. They're beautiful, okay? And I do see my relationship with the Penguin English Library books as being like an aesthetic one. I love the idea of like owning my own place one day and having my Penguin English Library books as like a decor piece. The vast majority of them I do plan on reading, but Moby Dick, probably not. You'll notice a theme that all 3 of these are pretty chunky. Although that theme does come to an end, it's not just the big books that are still on my TBR. The one book that is left on my TBR from 2016 is Singin' and Swingin' and Getting Married Like Christmas by Maya Angelou, and this is Maya Angelou's 3rd memoir, and that is exactly the reason that I haven't read this book yet. I have read her first autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, but I don't have her second one, Gathered Together in My Name. I do want to purchase that in the same edition as this one, and I have the same edition of I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings. I just haven't got around to buying the second one, and I can't read the 3rd one until I've read the second one, and that is the only reason why I haven't read this book yet. Moving into 2017, where I purchased the remainder of these books, I am yet to read all of Kitteridge by Elizabeth Strout. And again, this is one that I started to try and read, and there is a postcard in this that says, Of all the worlds created by man, the world of books is the most powerful. And I read 90 pages of this, so roughly the same point that I got to in Perfect. And I had kind of the same experience where I was like, I feel like I would like this book, but just the headspace I'm in when I'm reading this, I'm not having a good time. This was recommended to me by one of my university lecturers for one scene in particular, and I never got to that scene. So I do still really want to read this. Elizabeth Strout is an author that I've heard really good things about, so definitely do still want to read this one. I don't even remember what it's about. It's just about a woman named Olive doing her thing. I don't know what it's about. Some poetry. The poetry book that has been on my TBR for the longest time is Selected Poems by W.H. Auden. I have read bits and pieces of Auden's poetry over the years. Obviously, I know the most famous one, Funeral Blues. There was also another poem of his that made me cry after a breakup many years ago, and I can't remember what that was called, but I thought it was a great poem. I've really enjoyed all of the poetry that I have read from Auden. Do I feel slightly daunted by how many poems there are in this? A little bit. So maybe I should just take this one slow and steady and read little bits of it when I'm feeling in the mood, rather than trying to tackle it all in one go. Next is Charlotte Brontë, A Life by Claire Harmon. I mean, the title of this one is pretty self-explanatory. It is a book all about the life of Charlotte Brontë. Why did I buy this? I think partially it was the cover, because I love the cover of this book. I think it's great. I do find the Brontës interesting. I find Charlotte the least interesting. Do I want to read a whole book about her? I don't know. I feel like I would rather learn more about the Brontë. I know a lot about the Brontës already, I feel. But if I was gonna learn more about it, I think I'd probably prefer to watch a documentary. So this is the one book on this list where I'm like, maybe should I unhaul this? I don't know. I'm feeling pretty on the fence about it. And I normally say if you're on the fence about whether you should keep a book or not, it means that you shouldn't keep it. So we'll see. I also have this Penguin Classics binder that has Mary and Maria written by Mary Wollstonecraft and Matilda written by Mary Shelley. There are a lot of M names involved there. Mary Wollstonecraft, probably most well known for writing the, at the time, radical text A Vindication of the Rights of Women, and Mary Shelley, of course, most well known for writing Frankenstein. And the pair were mother and daughter. Do you remember the first time that you found that out and it blew your tiny fucking mind? Because it blew my mind. And this is a collection of 3 short stories, 2 written by Mary Wollstonecraft, 1 written by Mary Shelley. I don't really know anything about what happens in any of these stories, but I feel like I'm gonna like them. I have read Frankenstein and I really like Frankenstein, so still very keen to read this. Sweet Freak by Sophie Mackenzie is the only young adult book on this list. Again, this is one that I've had on my TBR since 2017. I think the kind of like teen thriller genre has really grown in the past few years, like with Karen M. McManus, with Holly Jackson, and Sophie Mackenzie was doing that genre amazingly before other people were. But I am yet to read Sweet Freak, which is all about, I think, like cyberbullying. Love this cover as well. I think this cover is gorgeous. And the final book that I'm going to talk about today is Stoner by John Williams. This book has narrowly avoided being unhauled so many times because when I read the blurb of this book, when I think about what it's about, it is not something that appeals to me at all. This is essentially just a guy's life story. We follow him going to university when he's 19, him going on to become a teacher, his marriage, and that he married the wrong person, and it's just following his life story as far as I'm aware, and nothing about that really appeals to me. But I have heard so many people rave about this book, people who I would expect to also be turned off by the premise of the novel in the same way that I am, and they have loved it. So there's gotta be something good about it, right? It isn't long either. I don't know why I haven't read it. And it is so highly acclaimed as well. Like, this is one of those books that always shows up on those like greatest novels of all time lists. So it will be read. It will be read. So they are the 10 books that have been on my TBR for the longest time. Have you read any of these books? Can you convince me to pick them up sooner rather than later? Apart from Moby Dick, because I'm never gonna read that shit. All of the books that I've mentioned will be linked down below in the description if you want to find out more about them. If you've made it this far in this video, then leave me the clock emoji, because these books have been on my TBR for a long time. Get it? Get it? Clock, time. Yep, got it. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will speak to you in my next video.